Today,
on TV.
ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest in the building. It is Kenny Burgos. You know what I'm saying? He's the CEO of New York Apartment Association. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mero.
You know what I'm saying? I am smart. You know what I'm saying? In a lot of regards. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes I like to say I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I don't know exactly what the New York Apartment Association does. So if you can run it down for the tri-state, because I'm sure I'm not the only one.
You and every other New Yorker, no worries. So the New York Apartment Association, we're a trade organization. I tell people the same way AARP represents senior citizens, I represent rent-stabilized property owners across the city of New York.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's in the simplest terms. So I advocate for them. I talk to the governor, the mayor, state lawmakers, city lawmakers, and also the public.
Right. So in terms of like, so if I have a rental and I'm just like, I got my apartment and like, I don't know, man, there's like a hole in the ceiling or something, or like my heat don't work, I could be like, yo, Kenny.
No. That's your landlord. So your landlord relies on me and our organization to then advocate for them, right? So like, I'm a former state lawmaker. So I used to write policy. I was a state assemblyman, actually, with Zohran Mamdani, right? So like, now is where I lobby the mayor, I lobby his team, I lobby city council. So I try and make the laws work for housing overall. And while I represent property owners, I try and balance this. I mean, listen, I'm a Bronx born and raised. I'm, again, former state lawmaker. So it's about getting this policy right, because tenants aren't happy, that's for damn sure, but property owners are also struggling. So like, where can we meet in the middle to try to get this more balanced?
Right. And like, what percentage of like landlords would you say are like my parents were landlords for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like they rented out, they had like a multifamily in the Bronx or whatever, and they had one unit. You know what I'm saying? So they weren't really
you got something to get passed down to at least.
You know what I mean? They weren't BlackRock, but they were somebody was paying rent. What percentage of homeowner or like property owners are those type of people? Like, yo, I got a crib and it's a multifamily and I live in the first unit and the second unit I rent out, or my daughter got pregnant, so now she lives here and I'm collecting rent from her or whatever. Like, what's the percentage between that and like corporate, kind of rolling up, a bunch of different properties?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And I'll tell you, our organization represents close to 500,000 units in this city, particularly rent stabilized. And amongst our membership that I can speak to, the overwhelming majority is what we would call a small property owner, right? But by unit count, then that's when the numbers start changing, just because you can have larger entities, middle-sized organizations that just have, maybe a couple hundred, a couple thousand units. But New York City is still run by many, property owners like your parents. I mean, we really have. I still have people that come to my office with that Polish immigrants with paper napkins saying, "Hey, help me with the registration for this." Like, so we really run the whole spectrum of just real professional operators and some that just had the property for generations.
Right. Okay, so listen, we are here. Kenny's here in the building. There's a lot of questions because, by the way, New York City, maybe you have heard, over a million rent stabilized properties have had their rent frozen by the mayor and the administration. Shout out to Zohran Mamdani. Let's get into that.
Let's do it.
But first, let's take this break, okay? Kenny Burgos in the building, New York Apartment Association, High 97. We're going to be right back. YouTube, keep it locked right there because we're going to say some bad words in the midst of this investigation. All right, let's go. Mornings with Mero, baby.
We're still live, y'all.
Yeah.
So man, you just got apartment approved, or?
Yeah, so through the housing lottery.
Okay.
So that's different.
So that's different.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I try to make it interesting, but like.
We're
still live.
So talk. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you do the housing connect, that's rent stabilized, but that is temporary and that gets a government subsidy. So like, this is where it gets confusing. But there's 1 million units. What you're talking about is like 20%. Who I represent is the 80%. And this is people that had these buildings since pre-1974.
Right.
They get nothing
The
from
pre-war
government.
buildings.
Yeah, and the pre-war, the walk-ups, like those are the buildings I'm talking about. And this is where like that rent freeze and just balancing this is tough because it's all regulated by government. They have all the costs. And this is why I think the trope around New York City landlords has always been, they're terrible, but it's like you're operating under really the strictest regulations in the whole country.
So then what are they supposed to do then? It seems like a lose-lose.
But that's what I'm saying, right? So when you talk about a rent freeze, like I represent the Southeast Bronx. I had multiple rent stabilized properties. And it's like my wife's grandmother lives for 52 years in a rent stabilized apartment. Her rent is $740. That's amazing for her. But the reality is that ain't paying for the building. So when you come down to the need for a boiler or a roof or anything, that $740 is not paying for it. So all I try to do is concede to reality here. I want affordable housing. We all want to deal with it, but it comes down to math. Right. And the city has to recognize where they just make it prohibitively expensive. The housing you're talking about, the Housing Connect, the way they get that housing to work is they give developers a property tax break just to give you a set aside of some affordable units, but then you got to have 5K rents to make the math work. So that you need that, but let's be real. There's so many New Yorkers that just fall in the middle, right? They make a little too much for the affordable unit, and they definitely don't make enough for the $5,000 units.
My thing is just like I've always like people always like, "You political stance? What's your political stance?" My political stance is my mom was a public school teacher and my dad was an HVAC technician, and they were able to buy a home. I was like, can we get back to that? You know what I'm saying? I know like costs go up, inflation, but like I feel like wages are not matching inflation. Obviously, we all know that.
Yeah,
we see the charts, and it's going like this instead of like this. And like those, like you're saying, like those people that are in the middle, right? Like the bus drivers, the school teachers, the mail carriers, all those people who have what used to be a good job, and now it's like, all right, man, this is barely covering my rent, groceries, etc. So what is like? How do you solve for X?
How do we fix it all?
Yeah,
that's the $1 million question, right? But this is why I get a lot of pushback, just because I represent property owners that think I just want to. Everything comes at a cost of tenants. Affordability crisis is very, very real. I have a lot of friends still struggling in the city. Friends that have moved to Jersey, friends that have moved to Florida. I know. I got beef. I got beef with that Jersey move, but that's after the fact. But the point being, but policy is what.
$750 for an active crack house is crazy.
But government law is what makes this stuff prohibitive. It's like I walk through empty units every week. There are 60,000 rent-stabilized apartments that are legitimately empty right now in the middle of a housing crisis that could be housing people that don't fit the Affordable Housing Connect website, that don't make the 5K rent. But the law is so prohibitive, owners literally say, I lose less money keeping it empty. And it'll probably take a little longer to explain that, but that's crazy. If you have a government policy that requires you to go into a lottery to find housing, and then you also have a government policy that says, well, that unit is better off being empty instead of serving somebody.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Is there a way? I mean, this seems like a very simple solution, but
but not in politics.
Right. Basing the rent on the person. I mean, I feel like this is a thing that happens already, but basing rent on somebody's income. Like you said, like the grandma that's been in the apartment for 50 years probably is on a fixed income, like Social Security or disability or something like that. And those checks, I know because I had to go and translate for Titi a million times at the Social Security office. Those checks really don't cover, like you can't live off of that. So to me, then it makes sense for your rent to be $500. If you're 70, you're retired, you can't work, you're on a fixed income, and you need to also eat food. You know what I'm saying?
and I think we should have that, but the reality is we can't just have that and expect the property owners, private property owners, to fund that for them, right? Because the reality is that the city is putting in property taxes, there's insurance rates, Con Ed bills, water, labor, sewer, all this is going up. And so you can't ask your parents to cover all that cost because that grandmother only makes $500 to pay for rent. That's where government comes in, right? I always tell people, what do we do for food, right? The government was smart and put in EBT and SNAP and said, no one says to the grocery store, hey, make that steak $2 and the milk $1 because grandma can't afford it. What do? We give her some cash in her pocket. You have dignity. You go with a card, and you can pay for that food just like anyone else. That's where the government has to come in with vouchers.
Rent EBT card.
There you go.
Hey, Kenny, we have some questions from the chat.
Yeah.
They want to know what makes. I don't know if this is the right frame, but what makes you go into the housing business? I don't know what they mean. Business.
No. I mean, I get what they're saying.
Housing is an interest.
I've been in government my whole life. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. When I was a state assemblyman, 90% of the people that came through my office for help was with housing, whether it was rent arrears, finding an apartment. And so I said, how do we fix this here, right? I'm a Democrat. I'm one of 150 lawmakers elected to fix problems. And so I learned about this rent-stabilized housing crisis, and I said, I know it's controversial, but this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to try to fix it. So I try to put in laws to try to fix this. I got a little bit of pushback for sure, but then this opportunity came. Personal story, I had a young one, so I was traveling to Albany 6 months a year. My wife wasn't loving that. And I said, if I can work this organization, try to change the politics around real estate being just villain, right? And work with tenant advocates, work with elected officials to try and actually fix what I think is the biggest problem in New York City. You talk to anyone, when we say affordability, that's housing. What's your biggest bill? It's housing.
Straight up.
And so if I could do this work from this vantage point and still be impactful, I mean, that's a dream for me.
And then Kenny, last one from the chat. They said social media for you seems to be in heavy use for the NYAA. How's that contributing in getting your message out there to a younger audience?
It's hugely important. I mean, I've been doing social media. I've been telling, when I was a staffer for elected officials, I told them, you got to be on Twitter. You got to be on Instagram. They're like, Twitter's not real life. Now we got a mayor who literally ran and won basically not only on social media. I mean, he's an excellent politician, right? But the reality is when I was an elected official, I made these TikToks on like issues like Easy Pass and went viral without even trying. And it just proved to me, like, you got to talk to people where they are. From young to old, everyone wakes up, unfortunately, and first thing they do is scroll on their phone. And so if you want to teach government what's happening, teach people how we fix things, I'm on the news. I go on ABC 7, Pix 11. That's important. My grandma sees that. But people my age aren't seeing it.
Right.
So I got to be on social media. So every week, part of my job is I'm literally making TikToks, and the shame is gone. I'm in the streets with cameras out. But people see it, and people recognize me, and they have conversation, again, on the most important issue in this city. It's housing.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say to people who see, like, you know, because it's private housing, those private owners should put more money into the resources, so that grandma that is paying $750 a month that already has less isn't asked to do more when the person who is the property owner has more efforts, has more money to sort of like make it a little bit more affordable. For
sure. And again, I get that, right? But it's all math. This is what it comes down to, right? You have to give property owners the ability to make this math work. You can't tell them pay $150,000 property tax bill a year, pay an insurance bill that's doubled in the past 5 years, pay water bill is going up 6% next month, 35% in the last 5 years, Con Ed bills we all know are through the roof, and then say bring that rent down and invest in your building. The math just has to work. So I'll go back to the point, like, this is where government helps people. So going back to rent freeze, right? Vouchers is a rent freeze. No matter what the RGB does, no matter what the mayor decides, like, it's based on your income. You wouldn't see an increase, right? There are rent freeze programs called SCREE and DREE. We advocate for those, but you just can't ask the private property owner to have money come out of thin air. That median rent in rent stabilized housing is $1,500. I know we always hear about expensive rents in the city, and that's really true. But 500,000 apartments rent below $1,500. You can't fix a $500K roof on $1,500. So you have to be able to borrow and finance on the building.
All right,
so
20 seconds, y'all. We're going back on radio. Let's make sure we get this for the radio audience too.
Yep.
So Mero, pick up where you left off. Pick up where you left off with the
rent freeze up. Yeah.
All right, 5 seconds, y'all. Back on air. No cursing this time. Not for you.
Yes, sir. Hot 97 Mornings with Mero, baby. We're back. You know what I'm saying? The number one morning show in the world. You know what I mean? I don't even care what they're doing in the Philippines, bro. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I mean? Botswana, you know what I mean? We smoking everybody. You know what I mean? The DR doesn't matter. You know, if you got a morning show, we are superior. Okay? This is Hot 97. You understand? And we're here with Kenny Burgos. You know what I'm saying? I'm Latino, so I'm going to say it correctly. I know a lot of people, Kenny Burgos.
None of my teachers have said that, so I appreciate that. Kenny Burgers.
Kenny Burgos is here. We're with Kenny the Burger. No, it's Kenny Burgos. He's in the building. He's the CEO of the NYAA, the New York Apartment Association. We were just talking about housing, affordability, because, like you said, when New Yorkers talk about affordability, the number one thing they're talking about is housing. You know what I'm saying? Rent, mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. So we were talking about the rent freeze that currently went into effect, and you were saying how it is kind of at odds with, you know, maintaining a building and like keeping it, you know, up to code.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Things like that. So, like you said during the YouTube, if you missed it, that's your fault, because you should be watching the Magic Hour on YouTube and Hot 97 TV. But Kenny said that we have to believe in the reality, right? And what is that reality for the people that were not here?
Math is what I'll say first and foremost. But the reality is rent stabilized housing is 1 million units across this city, and median rent of $1,500, which is affordable for some, not affordable for all. But it's not as if this rent freeze is breaking this year. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but this housing has been really being destroyed for like 10 years now. There's a law in 2019, we could talk about another time, that really destroyed it. But the Rent Guidelines Board has come in under inflation for 10 years. So when you have this housing that just can't pay for these repairs, can't invest in these regulations, roofs, boilers, elevators, that all costs a lot of money. And I'm not saying it has to be in the backs of tenants, but let's talk about programs that we can help affordability. Voucher programs, SCREE and DREE. This is how I was telling you guys, you know, the government did a great job with EBT and SNAP, right? They don't go to supermarkets and say, well, the eggs and bread and milk is too expensive, so supermarket owner, bring that price down to $1. They say, if you can't afford it, here's an EBT card. You can shop with dignity just like any other shopper and feed your family, feed yourself. That's how you help housing affordability. We can't just ignore math here. The city of New York is very expensive. You know, Mia, you were telling me Housing Connect, right?
Yep.
People, hate Housing Connect.
I know.
And why is that? Because the government makes it so expensive to build housing. What they have to do is tell developers, give me 20% set aside at this quote-unquote affordable housing, and the rest got to be $5,000 rents that nobody can afford. So some people can't make the income limits for the affordable, and others can't afford that $5K rent. So where are we meeting people in the middle?
Right.
They're not.
Where is the middle, number one? Number two, what do you say to those people that are like, well, if you can't afford it, sell it and sell it to somebody who can afford it. Mr. Property Man, if you got 10 properties and one of them is in severe disrepair because you can't afford, like you said, like you can't afford it, why not flip it?
The people are selling them right now. Rent stabilized properties. I can show you properties that make your jaw drop. I think I've seen people post about this. I want to buy this building, $20,000 a unit, $30,000 a unit. I mean, less than the price of a car. But that's not an advertisement. That's a warning. So yeah, people are selling them now, but if I can't make the math work because of the regulations, the next person ain't gonna make it work either. And at the heart of all this is who? The tenants. Is people gonna live in subpar housing? When you talk about the rent freeze, the density of rent stabilized housing is in the Bronx, is in Washington Heights. Families that built this city. They've been living it 30, 40 years. Mero, I'm sure you got family in Washington Heights.
Come on.
Come on.
Sherman Ave, what up? You know what I'm saying? Vermilion, what up?
But when their rents are just below the operating costs, when the city makes it more expensive on property taxes, water, labor, insurance, you name it, they're squeezing the operation. That shows up as the tenant experience. So yeah, they can sell the building, but who's still there? Your family, the tenants. And they got to deal with the next owner who still has to deal with the same math.
Right.
It's still a problem.
But what if that owner is like, hey, I got it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am making a ton of profit year over year. I'm crushing it. So I can afford to come in here, renovate this thing, and still kind of operate, maybe even breaking even on this place. But in this other property that I have in Riverdale, I'm absolutely killing. So what about that? Like the balance of that? Like,
well,
because
the building has to stand up on its own, right? At the end of the day, if I got two buildings but it's two different bank loans, JP Morgan ain't gonna say, hey, you can take that money and give it over to Wells Fargo alone. Like that, you just can't do that. And that's just not good business. Are you gonna operate a bodega in Washington Heights and your one in Brooklyn's doing real well? You can say, well, I'll just subsidize the Brooklyn one because as long as I can, because it feels good. I mean, you could be altruistic about that, but at the end of the day, it has to stand up on its own. So this is where government has to be helpful here. We have to help people in need, but we can't just ignore math and expect this to work.
By the way, Hot 97, this is Kenny Burgos, you know what I'm saying? NYAA, New York Apartment Association. So what is like a pie in the sky simple solution? Is it like a SNAP program for housing? Is it, I mean, because, like I said, my parents have that one unit, and they've always taken Section 8 tenants.
Yeah.
And they're like, because we know that check is coming.
Because it pays the rent.
Right. It's coming. It's never going to fail. It's never going to be like, hey, I don't got it this month. It's just there because it's coming from the government.
So I'll give you the answer how we solve it. You want to hear something funny about that? Section 8 is an excellent program that helps you pay for their rent. You know what the government in New York City says? If a tenant has a Section 8 voucher, but the legal rent of your rent stabilized apartment is $800, you can only get $800. Mind you, the federal government, who could legitimately print money, is willing to pay, let's say, $2,300. It costs no extra money for the tenant. It funds the building. You can't get the rest of that money. That is why this housing is not being funded. So how do we fix this? We've all finally learned you got to build housing. The city just has not built housing for years now. So it's a supply and demand issue at its core. But rent stabilization itself, the law in 2019 made it so that you have empty apartments that are basically better off staying empty. The owners lose less money keeping them empty than renting them out. You've got to fix it. There's 60,000 units that could put supply right now. That does three things. It doesn't raise rents on anyone in rent stabilized housing today. It brings the needed housing we need that won't be on Housing Connect, that won't be income verified through a website like that. And on top of that, it softens rents across the board because now landlords got to compete. If there's 60,000, you got to build, but you have to unleash these units too.
Right. And so have you identified any areas that are like, yo, this is great for building right here? You know what I mean? Like, we could build housing here. Like, we could build housing here.
Everywhere. I mean, they've done these studies. Across the city, there's so many parts of the city that have done nothing to help this housing crisis. I mean, listen, I'm from the Bronx, but Throg's Neck hasn't done anything. Throg's Neck got to build more housing. Soho don't want to build no housing. Like, there's a lot of regulations and bureaucracy in this that we probably won't get into today, but you got to build. This is why cities like Austin, Texas are eating our lunch. I know we could talk about Texas in a whole lot of ways, but Austin, Texas has affordable housing because they just keep meeting the demand. They let people build to meet that demand. Here in New York, we want to be so restrictive. And then this is why people are fighting. You see these TikToks of people in the West Village 40 deep around a corner for one apartment. Who's raising that rent?
Right.
Is it the property owner or is it 40 people saying, oh, you paying $3,000? I'll pay $4,000. I'll pay $4,500.
Right. Trying to
You
over.
bid it up. That's a supply and demand in effect.
So I feel like that's something that you and Zohran Mamdani have like a parallel idea on. It's just like supply.
Yes.
Like we need to build more housing because there's a lot of people in New York City.
Yes. Zohran and I served in the state assembly. I said it on YouTube, and we have a lot of agreements, right? We agree that the insurance crisis is hurting people. We agree you got to build more housing. He agrees the property tax system doesn't work for renters because it burdens the renters. They don't see it on their bill, but it comes through on their rent, basically.
Right.
But what we don't agree is the rent freeze is how you solve affordability. What did I say? 60,000 units that are empty? That rent freeze, I guarantee you, is going to cause more empty units. But on top of that, you're going to see market rent spike. Why? Because if I'm in a rent stabilized unit, there's a million across the city. I'm not leaving. So those units are basically locked in. Nobody's moving. So now everyone is fighting for the crumbs that are left. And again, most people can't afford that market rate, 5-6K. So what are we fighting over here? There's a 1.4% vacancy rate in the city of New York. It's like 30,000 apartments roughly. Millions of people here. What did I just say that line in West Village? People are going to bid it up. The highest income people, the people with the most, the most wealth, the most assets.
The out-of-towners?
Yeah, that too. That too. I mean, we could talk about that, but like that's what's happening here. You just gotta build.
You gotta build, baby. Build, baby,
It's
build.
simple.
You know what I'm saying? And Alex Burgos from the NYAA
Kenny,
says,
Kenny.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? He said, yo, build. It's Kenny. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why I said Alex. I know Alex Burgos. That's probably why. Shout out to Alex but more importantly, shout out to Kenny Burgos and the New York Apartment Association. No, thank you for coming through, my guy, and breaking it down for our listeners out there. You know what I'm saying? Listen, where can they find you at? Where can they find the information, everything you got going on?
Appreciate you having me on. I'm on all socials at Kenny Burgos NY. I'm on those socials. I read the comments. I answer DMs. I'm willing to engage with anyone in these conversations.
That's right. You know what I'm saying?